Okay, alam po ninyo, we want to tell you a little bit about the economic opportunities that are possible with China. But of course, we have to take a look at it in terms of the broader context, in terms of our own squabble about the Scarborough Shoal and all that. Kasi habang tumataas ang cost of production sa China, maraming mga industries nila o ng mga banyaga doon will want to transfer it to a lower cost, and they're beginning to reach that point na mas mataas na ang cost nila sa atin dito. Now, how much do you think over the next 5 or 10 years, how important will the transfer of certain industries from China to the Philippines be?
It's very important. Let me give you a specific case. Hitachi is producing in Santa Rosa a very valuable component of computers, the brains. So it's not just a labor-intensive. Last year, Hitachi decided to close down its factory in Shanghai and to transfer the operation. To add, they already have 9,000 workers there. They will add another 2,000 to bring that operation to Santa
Dito
Rosa.
sa Pilipinas?
Yes. You know why? Because their factory in Shanghai was suffering 30% attrition during normal times and 50% during Chinese New Year. Meaning, 50%
wala mga tao.
Exactly, don't come back anymore. And so, then they look at their Santa Rosa attrition, 5%. It was not
Santa
very
Rosa,
difficult.
Laguna.
Santa Rosa, Laguna, exactly. So, that is a harbinger of what will happen to many other operations. It's not really very low cost here. It's the dependability of Filipino workers.
And the high productivity of the Filipino
Exactly.
workers. But let me ask you a question. Ito tanong nga dito sa atin, 0933-554-0438. Please don't forget to give your name and where you're coming from. You think industrial investment will come in when power is so high? A recent article said we are the second highest in all of Asia, higher even than Japan.
Yes. They're coming in.
This is a real holdback on investment.
Yeah, well, they're coming in. Just ask, and I hope you can invite her, Lilia de Lima. It's amazing how many, for example, Japanese investors are now looking at the export processing zones because of the problems.
Because of
exactly.
Fukuoka that happened there.
And not to mention that they have no workers anymore. There are no babies being born.
It's kasi a gerontological society.
Exactly.
Puros matatanda ang natitira po sa Japan. No?
Exactly. And that's happening to South Korea. South Korea is going through a demographic winter also. So all of these highly developed economies, if we keep on improving just those three areas where investors complain: corruption, red tape and bureaucracy, and efficient infrastructure.
And continuation of policies. You cannot afford to change it every time you change the
That's
president.
part of red tape and bureaucracy. They keep on changing. Yeah. But we're addressing that, and I think that, as I said, I see manufacturing having a renaissance.
Okay, but have you any kind of theory about or vision about what type of manufacturing industries are going to be set up here?
No,
how fundamental and how basic, and do we have the supporting industrial infrastructure to provide, for example, the specialty steels or alloys, etc., or other hybrid materials that industry might need? Yeah.
I don't see an integrated steel mill having a chance here. There's so much excess
capacity
supply,
in the region.
Specialized steel, definitely. There are going to be
yung mga special sandwiches na tinatawag nila, steel sandwiches.
Exactly.
Alloys.
Alloys, exactly. And then, take a look at what Samsung is producing in Clark. It's high-value chips. It's not just labor-intensive. So more and more, they're thinking of the Philippines for the mid-level and higher-value manufacturing. But we have to be more open to foreign investments, and that's my biggest complaint. Our Constitution is so restrictive of foreign investment.
Well, that's part of our knee-jerk reaction to the nationalistic sentiments of so many people that have been fostered by few select groups.
Of course. What happens is they are nationalistic, but they just preserve the elite. The ones who become the monopolists are the few.
What in that book, Nations Fail, what he calls the hard law of oligarchy.
Exactly.
Or elitism.
We are still an oligarchic society. It's very clear. Just take a look at
it. It's also extractive. You take a look at some of our leading people who never employ the people as employees, puro contractual. So that means always depressed wages and no benefits.
Yeah. You know, Ray,
and that's outlawed by the Supreme Court.
I know, but Ray, there is good news there. Because of that practice, thousands and thousands of workers are now organizing what are known as worker cooperatives. So now they supply their own work as owners of cooperatives And so even
Ano pa rin sinasubcontract sa kanilang trabaho?
correct, yeah. For example, one of the most famous ones is called Asia Pro. It's now actually employing something like 15,000 more workers in Mindanao for the banana plantations, apple plantations, because necessary they are actually cyclical, no?
And
Go there
I guess
harvesting.
that also prevents a lot of labor problems.
Well, but in fact, there is a law now that's being passed in Congress that will rule on what are workers' cooperatives, how are they going to function, and what are the benefits to the workers. Because when they belong to the workers' cooperatives, they're employed 12 months a year, even if they have to, from time to time, get out of work because of the cyclical nature of production. And they actually are now addressing the retailing outlets. The Jollibees, etc., are now turning to them.
Okay. I want to go back to this original question about why power rates are so high. We kind of glossed over it.
Yes.
But sometimes I think part of the problem there is that the ones who are in charge of determining the rates that consumers will pay, and the point has been raised that they are too much in the pocket of either the power producers or power distributors.
Correct.
And that there is too much of a cabal between the producers and the distributors.
Yeah, definitely we need a competition law. They have been working on that in Congress for years. They haven't come out.
The lobby is just too powerful, I guess.
I know. We just have to fight that lobby because that's part of the problem in both telecom and electricity.
Even the cost of telecommunications
Correct.
dito, yung mga text natin.
Correct.
You know, in India, the cost of even calling long distance is so low, it's ridiculous.
Correct.
Pero dito, ang mahal-mahal pa rin ang binabayad natin at dinadaan natin, tumataas yan doon sa interconnection fees.
Correct. Yeah.
Bakbakan ba ng bakbakan?
Yeah, because it's an oligopoly, so there's no real competition.
Okay, it's part of your economic reform. Does that include sections that will deal with those oligopolistic institutions?
Definitely. I'm very much pushing the passing of that competition law because it will address the whole question of what is a monopoly in the Philippine context and what should be actually penalized.
Although we have an anti-monopoly act on the
It
books,
has never
but
worked.
it is the most, because it is only upon determination of a politician
Exactly.
to move against it.
And it's
And
not a
there are a
separate law.
million reasons why he will not want to.
And it's not a separate law. It's, believe it or not, it's a criminal law.
I know.
Yeah. And no one has gone to jail.
Kaya kailangan natin dito kasi yung tinatawag nilang antitrust.
Exactly. That is what the competition law is all about.
All right. When it comes to the financial part of our own economy, you keep hearing all of this, oh, the banks are so well capitalized, blah, 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 blah. The question that I will ask you is, do you think that we should still, shift from that idea of a universal bank, Banque d'Affaires of Europe style, which of course became such a disaster in the States when they eliminated the Glass-Steagall Act.
Correct.
And the fellow who led that battle now is turning around singing the opposite tune.
Correct.
That commercial banking should be separated from investment banking. Yeah. Do you think we should adapt that here? And should we wait for a disaster before we do something?
Absolutely. I think we have to separate the two. Learn from the mistakes of others. And instead of waiting for a disaster, let's already follow.
Why are we not doing something about it?
Well,
the rest of the world is not doing anything about it either.
Yeah.
We haven't seen any new models of regulation, for example, regarding financial institutions.
Yeah. Well, I think we should pioneer in that area.
And even any kind of, do we have already sophisticated regulations regarding, for example, derivatives? O wala pa tayong masyado nadidili.
Well, fortunately, our banks have not been that innovative with derivatives anyway. So.
But in any case, sa akin dito, that we have to, some people were always at some point asking me, bakit ba ang dami-dami nagsasarang bangko dito? Ngayon, why is it that the central bank does not know na magsasarado na ito isang bangkong ito, kanya pumunta na sa iyo, sinuli na mga susi sa kanilang quarters? To me, that's a failure of supervision.
Well, as you know, what's happened is some of the weaker banks have been absorbed by the larger banks. So there's a lot of,
if that happens, no? But on the other hand, ang punto ko dito, if you have an effective regulatory or supervision over the financial institutions, this should not happen. What is lacking in terms of the central bank's supervision coverage that allows these things to happen right under their noses? And, of course, I'm not expecting you to be an apologist for the central bank. But I think there is a reason, or there is a basis to question whether the supervisory activities are adequate or not. And, you know, how do they, is there any sophistication being brought to bear regarding the assessment of credit exposures, the assessment of risks and rewards? But I don't think this is something that economists really look at too much.
Yeah. But at least one thing you see is that the central bank is getting stricter about governance. I mean, they're really looking into how banks have board of directors and whether the people are really independent and so on and so forth. Because that's one of the areas where there was so much conflict of interests in many banks, where they actually had the directors who were already also directors of other companies which were borrowing, etc., etc. And I think there has been.
But they've established those regulations on DOSRI for the longest time.
I know, but it was honored more in the breach. But now they're stricter about those types of
maybe
policies.
when the banks do wrong and they catch them, maybe that they should impose much stiffer penalties. Otherwise, the bankers will not, you know, they will go for where they think they make the most money, and the question of personal interest sometimes, unfortunately, comes in.
Correct. Yeah.
Kanya nagkakaroon ng conflict of interest na compromise ang mga judgment. Because there is personal interest that begins to come in. Now, taking a look at some of our other infrastructure projects, is there, from Singsun's standpoint, a big master plan, for example, that can take a look at the whole road network system that we are trying to develop? Because if we don't anticipate that by at least 10 years, the problem will always be there. The traffic will be continue to be a mess, and nothing will happen.
Yeah. Well, let me say, to her credit, the former president really produced the Philippine Nautical Highway, and that really has interconnected one
different
island to
parts
another.
of the
Exactly. And really
more cohesiveness now nationally.
Exactly. I mean, who would think 10 years ago that you'd be able to travel from Manila to Batangas, cross in your own car to Ronald Roroff to Calapan, and then go all the way to Panay, in your own car all the way to Zamboanga? I mean, that was unthinkable. Now that's possible. Now, one of the reasons why Manila is a hopeless city is there are too many people here. But if we start really developing other conglomerations in Cagayan de Oro, in Davao, in General Santos, even smaller places like Dumaguete, we will have our population better distributed.
In other words, baka magkaroon ng return.
Exactly.
Reverse migration.
Yeah. And with all those better networks of roads and bridges, etc., it will happen. And, for example, BPO right now is finding Manila already too congested. So they're putting their operations in Iloilo, in Bacolod, in Dagupan, in Baguio.
Is it drawing people to go there to work?
Yes, correct.
But drawing from Metro Manila?
No. Right now, still stopping those people migrating to Manila. At least it's the first step. So no longer, and even universities, take a look at some of these conglomerates, like Finma Property, our friends there. They're improving universities in Cagayan de Oro, in Dagupan, in Cabanatuan, and so they don't have to come to Manila. Before,
so education has become a really good business, huh?
Definitely, definitely. Yeah.
Wow.
And not to mention hospitals. Take a look at Manny Pangilinan. He's buying hospitals all over
left,
the country.
right, and center.
Yes, yes.
All right. From EDC of Pasay, 0916-736-1553. Good evening, Sir Ray and Sir Bernie. How can the improvement in our GDP be translated into better lives, better income for the ordinary Filipino? I think that's a question that's on the lips of everybody in this country.
Yes.
You're talking about so much improvement,
yes,
pero sa aking buhay, wala.
Well, as I said earlier, make sure that that growth is basically in the rural areas, and that we really now correct the long neglect of rural and agricultural development. And the second one is, I'd like to say something in favor of the conditional cash transfer.
Okay.
Because there are poor people now who will have to be helped now, not tomorrow. Now, for example, if you don't give cash to a poor family, it will not be able to give the nutrition to their babies from 0 to 6, and those people are lost forever because their brains are damaged and they can no longer function. Or if you don't give them the cash to be able to go to school, they're already forever handicapped vis-a-vis the children of the rich.
Pero, Bernie, kulang na kulang. Akala mo ba mababagong buhay nila? Pineprenda lang yung kanilang ATM sa mga usurero?
Yeah, yeah.
But at least, pagkatapos, tanggal, kabit, balik sa listahan?
Yeah, well, it's better than nothing. It's better than nothing.
Yeah, I know, but the question is how efficient is it?
Yeah.
And in terms of improving their lives, how much will the cash transfer improve. If you get 1,000, 1,500 when you are not earning anything,
Yeah. But
I
at least,
don't know whether that will even suffice.
But as I said, at least you can feed some protein to your babies. No, you can buy some milk for your baby so that his brain doesn't get damaged.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Then the CCT should be changed to be given to those mothers who have newly born infants or children under 6 years of age. Because if the nutritional inputs at that age are not made, those brains are going to suffer forever.
But the Department of Social Welfare is considering that. I think that.
Pero dapat yun ang nauna eh.
Yeah, but they already are included very much. It's nutrition and education that are priorities.
Kasi pagkaalam ko sa CCT, it's only for you if you keep your kid in school.
No,
papasok ka doon 6 na taon. Paano ba naman?
No, part of it is really feeding clinics, no?
All right, from 001, we've got somebody from New Jersey. 001-2019-203716, JJ of New Jersey. Hindi sana hahaba ang investigasyon ng Senado tungkol sa baha. Kung sinagot ni Chairman agad ang lagi niyang sinasabi na malulutas na yung problema, pinag-aaralan na namin. Sus Mariosep naman, 2 taon nang nag-aaral. Doctorate degree yata ang gusto.
Sino yung chairman? Sino yung chairman?
MMDA siguro. Alam po ninyo, ito kanina tinatanong ko rin kay Ka Bernie, sabi ko, alam mo, ilang taon nang nakalipas ang Ondoy, anong ating nagawa? And I'm not sure that we've gotten any kind of answer again except to say, oy, nandiyan na kami. Ginagawa namin, pinag-iisipan na namin. Okay, but how long can we wait? Ngayon, too late na. Ito na yung rainy season. Ngayon, titiisin na natin ngayon ang baka 20 pang bagyo na dadaloy dito sa ating bansa over the rest of the rainy season. So, I don't know what to tell you. Ang masasabi ko lang, even I think, Kabeni, for all this optimism, would like to see, if I'm not putting words in your mouth, a little bit more visionary thinking and a little bit more practical thinking that enables them, and you want people in governance who understand what's going on in the economy and in the private sector. And to move with greater dispatch. Kasi kung minsan gusto mo yung tuwid na daan, ngayon lahat naman nag-iingat, bumabagal naman ngayon lahat ng ginagawa.
That's what happened last year.
Ayun. And I hope it doesn't continue this year, but we've already gone through 8 months and we have not seen something. Should we, I said, ito naman ang from 092913058889, sabi niya, I certainly agree with your economic observation. We should be an agro-industrial economy. We should have more investments in agro-industrial, not condominiums. So is the bubble here also, Kaberni?
For very high-priced apartments, let's say 15 million and up, there is already an impending oversupply. But for those units between 800,000 to 3 million, there's room
to congest Metro Manila more.
Well,
that's what happens when you build this condominium.
Yes,
diba?
But at the same time, it also answers the problem of too many people, traveling, from Santa Rosa here and then wasting gasoline, etc.
Okay, we've run out of time. Sinisignal lang tayo dito, Bernie. I want to thank you again for being with us. I know that we've kind of gone all over the lot, Bernie.
Yeah, no,
but the economy is very broad, and we've got to be able to understand some of the components and the issues that will make for an integrated politico-economic platform. We want to thank you again, and salamat po sa inyong...
It was a pleasure, Ray. Pleasure.
Okay, salamat po sa inyong pagtangkilik po sa gabing ito. I hope you maybe learned a little bit something more about where our economy should be going, because all of you have been asking me, saan ang roadmap? Saan ang roadmap? Well, maybe you'll understand too that sometimes it's a little difficult to create, but the effort must be made, and the day and the time is late. Okay? Thank you for being with us. God bless you. We'll see you next week.
Huli ka ng aso. Mahal tanging tinanas.
Hindi nire-release naman ng pork barrel kasi useless naman.
Patay, papabigyan ko ng 5,000 from my... So,
Marami
hindi ko hawak.
nagsasabi na
Hindi. Dahil baka mangyari, lahat ng madi-dismiss, mang-hostage na lang para ma-reinstate.